Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode 90, recorded for Wednesday, March 6th, 2019. Alright. Looks like Destiny's back. And it could not have come at a better time, because Anthem kind is not good. Bit of an addendum to the review that I did last week of Anthem. I've kind of done everything that I can do in the game, and there's not much more that can be done with it, and that's aggravating. Especially considering I spent $60 on it. So after wrapping up the main story, you will continue to get side stories from several other characters, but these eventually evaporate, and then you're left with just legendary contracts and running their version of strikes over and over and over again. But because of the balancing issues between the difficulties, there's only really a point in running the first one, Tyrant Mine. The others take 2 or 3 times as long, with the last one just being a recycled story mission and the final boss fight taking upwards of a half hour. If you're playing on harder difficulties, it can take a full hour. So if all you're doing, or if all you want to do is farm for loot, there's no point in wasting time on, getting the same amount of loot. Just keep running Tyrant Mine over and over again. But when you do anything ad nauseum, it gets old. You don't want to do it anymore. It begins to wane. And I kind of found myself at that point before I even hit max level. I think my Lancer is still only level 24. Max is 30, and I'm nowhere near gear top item level yet. Except, and one of the most recent bugs we found, that doesn't really matter. I apologize for all the road noise if you can hear it. I'm recording while driving. I'll edit it out best that I can, but I don't think I can edit out the blinker. Anywho, so yeah, the most recent bug we found is that with, the Defender Marksman Rifle, doesn't matter if you're using, the level 1 equivalent, or if you're using, the equivalent for your current level, say you're level 30, the numbers on the higher level one will say you're doing more damage, but since we can actually see enemy life bars, that's not the case. The level 1 does it. BioWare has since come out and said that this is a silly bug and it should be an easy fix. However, we're not going to see the patch for it come, the 12th. And they do have a patch that's coming out that's supposed to alleviate a lot of the issues, specifically the ones causing consoles to shut off. Not just shut the game off, but entirely shut the console down. I'd be hesitant to play any game that does that to my console. So yeah, I've set it down, much like Sea of Thieves, where I was convinced by friends to, oh yeah, you should totally get this. I got burned again, so I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again, and I'll try and remain resolute in this, that I'm done spending $60 on full-fledged titles when they're just being released half-finished with the promise that they'll get patched later. It's a waste of my money. I'd much rather wait a year after the release, play the catch-up game, and then actually have content to do. Now again, don't get me wrong, the Anthem story was fun, it was an enjoyable experience, but once you're done with that, there's not much else to do, and that was kind of, Destiny's problem as well, at least in year 1. So, now that Destiny's back, we have Season of the Drifter. It came out this last Tuesday. I was hesitant about this one just because I don't really care for the Gambit mode. It's one of those game modes where it feels really good when you win, but when you're losing, it is just an exercise in frustration, and it is a terrible fucking experience. From, the enemies not being scaled. I don't think they're scaled correctly. Like, they take way more damage, and they deal way more damage than their normal world counterparts. And the constant invasion cycle, if the enemy team plays that right, is super aggravating. And then on top of it, the Drifter. I hate the character of the Drifter. I don't know why, or I can't understand how anybody would find the character likable. He, aside from the Matthew McConaughey, all right line, he is just kind of an arrogant douchebag. With the concept behind the Drifter being, he, as soon as he was resurrected, he left the planet and took off to the far corners of space, and has just now come back. So he didn't help humanity at all. He's not really classified under any class. He's not even a Guardian. He's just arisen. And he's clearly up to no good, bad shit. Getting Guardians permanently killed. For those not familiar with Destiny, the idea behind it is that there is a little robotic companion called a ghost that can revive the Guardians, or player character in this instance, should they meet an untimely demise. Now, there are a couple of limitations to this. Say that the power source, is been taken away from said Guardian and Ghost, or if the Guardians remain dead for too long. One of the more popular, one of the more interesting bits with the lore regards the Thanatonauts. I think that's how you say it. I think it's a combination of Thanatos, the Greek god of death, and astronaut. So they're death explorers. The idea is that they will constantly kill themselves just to get a glimpse of the other side and see what knowledge they can glean from it. Which, to be honest, is something that I would totally be on board for, because as it stands right now, of course, we don't have the opportunity to glimpse into the other side and see what's there. That being said, I don't think anything's really turned up lore-wise as to what they encounter, if anything. But it's interesting. The idea is, death is just another slight road bump, or it's not really an obstacle, it's a hurdle. But Guardians can permanently be killed. In the case of the latest Hunter Vanguard, Cade 6, the marksman, Forsaken Baron, ended up shooting and destroying his ghost, which then, you can't bring Cade back to life if his ghost is dead. Same thing applies with Eris Morn, another Hunter Guardian that lost her ghost while dealing with the Hive. It's at that point they consider their next death, their final death. And that was something that was explored during the main story of Destiny 2. So the Guardian's dabbling, not the Guardian, the Drifter is dabbling with this. And if you read the lore books, where in preparation for this latest event, Gambit Prime, he's enlisted another Guardian and his fire team, and 3 out of the 4 ended up permanently dead, and he didn't seem to give too much of a shit. Now, the idea is that he's using taken energy and trying to harness their powers to win the overall war that is coming in the form of the darkness. However, don't know that this is necessarily true. The Drifter was a Dredgen. Dredgens were followers of a fallen Guardian called Yor. Reslor, I think, was his first name, and then he renamed himself to Dredgen Yor. Yor was the first Guardian to really dabble in the darkness by going to the moon and taking bits of Hive armor and infusing his hand cannon Rose with darkness, which then allowed him to go into the Crucible and permanently kill Guardians by stealing their light. The gun was then rebranded as Thorn. Since he was taken down, there was a cult that kind of popped up around him, with the followers calling themselves Dredgens. Dredgen's a title that you can earn by playing Gambit, and it's heavily implied that the Drifter and his compatriots were Dredgens themselves, trying to create these weapons of sorrow, as they were called, these Guardian killers. So in a world where death is just kind of an obstacle, but permanent death, like our deaths would be, is a big fucking deal. The idea that Guardians would do this to themselves is interesting. Before I had found out about the Dredgens and Fallen Guardians and the Weapons of Sorrow, I had thought it would be a fun idea to do like Fallen Guardians or Dark Guardians, maybe drawing on different elements instead of Solar, Void, and Arc. So when I finally read about this, it was super good. But again, with a character that's so wholly wrapped up in this, to the point where we go on a quest and find one of his compatriots had been killed by the legendary Malphur Shin Malphur, who was the ancient hunter who had finally taken down Dredgen Yor and is trying to clean up this remaining cult. It was the Drifter who ratted out one of his buddies, a fellow Dredgen, to Shin Malphur. And there's a big long quest line involving Shin Malphur's gun, The Last Word, and how it's gifted to you, and I still have to get that. But it's this whole big light versus dark type of thing. And with the latest expansion, we have a big emphasis played on the Drifter. And I was aggravated at first when we crafted Malfeasance with him, just because the story was going in a way that I didn't agree with the Guardian dabbling in darkness and, potentially falling to that and working with the Drifter. It's like, I've worked very hard to make sure that my character is essentially aligned good. Any game I play, the first round I go through it is, they're going to be the good guy. And the idea is you stand up for what's right, you protect your own, and that was the whole deal with the Forsaken expansion, that you're avenging the death of your good friend Cade 6. But now they drop this little hint that, nothing could have killed a Guardian except a Weapon of Sorrow, or something like a Weapon of Sorrow. And the idea is that the Drifter, or somebody he's in cahoots with, had crafted the bullet that the Marksman Baron used to destroy Cade's ghosts. So there's this big whole conspiracy with that. But we finally get the opportunity now to kind of take it to the Drifter. Now, Bungie hasn't necessarily hyped this up, but they've talked about it that, the Guardian, or the player character, is going to be able to take a stand and make a choice. Are you going to align with the Vanguard as far as getting the Drifter, exiled from the tower and getting rid of him? Or are you going to align with the Drifter and continue this probably, dark path that he's on? So, of course, I'm going to go side with the Vanguard, but I don't know. Anytime Bungie touts something, usually it ends up being kind of lackluster, so I'm trying to temper my expectations. But still, it's a nice choice made available to the people that don't necessarily agree with the Drifter. But that being said, Gambit Prime is a lot of fun, and this, again, coming from somebody that doesn't really care for the Gambit mode, but Prime really solves a lot of the problems I have with it, in the sense that instead of being 3 rounds, it's just 1. It's sudden death. It's very focused as far as, all right, first one to bank 100 motes, summons the primeval, go kill the envoys, go stand in the glow spot, burn down the primeval, rinse and repeat. So each match, you're in and out in under 10 minutes. And a lot of the track quests, again, like Breakneck and maybe Malfeasance, I'm not entirely sure, track in this. And so it's good, it's focused. Then they entice you, of course, with the idea of, you'll get specialized sets of armor depending on what role you want to do in this. And there's another game mode that we've created where it is essentially just a survival rush mode, and it plays extremely well. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's not like I played 8 hours of it today. But it gives us a carrot on a stick again, essentially what I've been looking for without a long, tedious grind. Because that's something that Destiny falls prey to, and it's where Anthem is right now, where, yeah, you can work on a quest that they have available in the game, but it's just a big it's time consuming. It's a long, arduous, tedious grind where it's not a whole hell of a lot of fun if that's all you're focusing on. That was my problem with the Malfeasance and Last Word quests, where they're a big long grind, and that was where I had issues with Black Armory as well. So I understand that in the grand scheme of things, the stuff in this season pass isn't going to be super in-depth lore-wise. Pretty much any of the lore is going to be relegated to the Grimoire entries, which you can read now in-game or on the app or online. But again, it's not effective storytelling, which Anthem had going for it. I just wish Destiny would or Bungie would invest a bit more in telling a more coherent story. Because as it stands right now, I don't feel super engaged with it. It's definitely takes me out of the experience when I go to the postmaster to find a lost item and only find, oh yeah, here's a bit of lore. Now you can read this. I don't know. That's the problem that Bungie's always had when it comes to talking about telling Destiny's stories. They don't do it well, but the game is a hell of a lot of fun to play. It's kind of the opposite problem we have with Anthem. So, if you've been wanting to dip your fun little toesies back into Destiny, now is the time. Again, once I kind of burn through the content and have to get back into the grinds, yeah, I'll probably put it back down for a while. But there's other things coming, like Bounties of the Nine, where we're finally going to learn a little bit more about those people, supposedly. And then, of course, the Drifter quest line. So it should be enough to keep folks around for a couple weeks, if not a couple months, kind of like Black Armory, which I still have to go back and finish that last forge. And then, yeah, we'll finally get into Season of the Redacted. And I don't know. I wonder if we're going to get another big expansion that's heavy with story, or if they're just going to kind of call it with this and start, maybe release more seasonal content before we finally get Destiny 3. I don't know. I'm curious to see. So yeah, if you're looking for a clan to play with, check us out, Orvcasitis. Pretty much the only active one right now. We'll see how many others come back. But we're working on the clan stuff. But otherwise, if you have your own thoughts, questions, concerns, criticisms, critiques, or you want to tell me I'm wrong about the Drifter and debate it, shoot me an email over at theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. And of course, this year, to help the show grow, just tell a friend. That's all I ask. Let somebody know, because that's the only way this happens. It's the only way it grows. It's the only way we get new listeners, is you telling folks. And I deeply appreciate it. But of course, you want to take it above and beyond, then head over to patreon.com/0and09 and pitch in $1 or $2 a month. That's all I ask. And, I'm sorry. Telling your friends all I ask. I am eternally in your... my eternal gratitude if you decide to actually throw money into this. But that's going to wrap it up for now. Side note with, I guess, telling folks, I was doing a bit of digging this past week, and apparently the show has just been completely rebranded as TUA. It's harder to find the Unwashed Asses on the different feeds because of that change I had to make because of Apple's services. So yeah, TUA is kind of how you're going to find it. Of course, you can always go to the site or YouTube, and I'll post stuff there. But if you're looking for it in a specific feed, maybe don't search the Unwashed Asses. Maybe just search TUA. But that's going to wrap it up.